Hi everyone, delonewolf here, and welcome to EVE Talk, your weekly look at the market in EVE Online. Now, someone asked a question on the previous episodes in the comments, and that is, why do I almost only cover ships and minerals in EVE Talk? And the truth is that it's just about the amount of time that I have available. Even checking what I do now already takes like 40 minutes. And if, let's say I would add the missile launchers, you've got small, medium, large missile launchers, you've got Take 1, all the metas, Take 2s, then you have the Excel missile launchers. Just doing a single class of items takes so much time that I think for now in EVE Talk I need to stick with the core of EVE Online, which personally I think are the spaceships. Also, equipment tends to be quite a bit less expensive, and thus we're talking I think opportunities that require much higher volumes in order to actually make trade deals on them. Although of course there are always winners and losers in almost all categories of items in EVE Online. At the moment it's just a time constraint. I don't feel like I can check everything that's available on the market. This is why I have this extra at the end of every EVE Talk. So if you have any suggestions or if you want me to check something in the next week, always feel free to post that in the comments. I write those down and I try to cover them as much as possible. So moving on to the market here, of course, let's start with plex, and that's not such good news for investors in plex. So let's say 130. Because plex have gone down quite drastically again. In fact, in the 5 minutes it took me to make the bar below, 5 more plex came in at 85 million, at 885 million, right, rather than 886 million. So here on the chart you can see that the trend was to go back up. We did manage to get a 5-day moving average above the 20-day moving average, but now we're back down towards the 850 million mark. One thing, of course, is going to play here, that is that CCP launched a plex sale, so this always tends to put some pressure on the plex price. So personally I'm seeing this as a buy opportunity. This will once again allow you to pick up some cheap plex below 900 million ISK, which in the grand scheme of things I think is a very reasonable price for 30 days game time, and a decent investment as well. Of course we could go a little bit lower. Keep one thing in mind, is that the summer is just ahead of us, and in the summer it is true that activity in EVE Online tends to fall back a little bit. That's probably due to the mature player base here. We've got a lot of adult people playing EVE Online, and during the summer of course there's a lot of family stuff that needs to be taken care of. There's vacations to be taken and all of that good stuff. So pressure could still be on, but at the moment honestly, if I have the ISK available to buy an extra plex, then that's what I'm doing at the moment already. I do think it will not go that much lower than this, but again, keep in mind that this is not a prediction, because as I'm refreshing the page here, we've got another one coming in at 882 million ISK. That's been a long time since we've seen buy opportunities straight from the market this low. So it's all up to you to decide whether or not you think that purchasing plex at this point is a good idea. It's definitely what I'm doing with the plex that I make, the ISK that I'm making at the moment. Moving on to multiple pilot trading certificates, those are hanging on at 920 million ISK, so quite a bit higher actually, 40 million more pretty much than the plex. That is of course indicative of a sales slump, I think, because yeah, these need a little bit of time. They need some people actively working on catching these up to plex, and here you can see that the 5-day moving average also moved up above the 20-day moving average, and these are actually trying to hold on above 900 million ISK. So is this an indication that plex are bound to go back up after the sale ends? It is possible, but the specter of summer is looming above plex prices in general. So do you want to wait with your diversification or trying to lower your average buy of plexes? That's an option as well, but personally I'm slowly starting to trickle in once again. Here is the pilot's body resculpt certificate, taking off towards 230 million from 220, but again, I'm not seeing this as any indication that plex should go up if the sale wasn't there. just because just look at how low the volumes are. We're probably talking just one sale at 230 million, and that's pretty much it that made this chart. The body resculpt is its own little market. I think that there can be money made here if you time it correctly with like CCP features that are maybe going to bring in some veterans that then all of a sudden have the option to resculpt their alts, which for instance here with the introduction of skill extractors and skill injectors is definitely something that happened. A lot of people finally had the option to create the alts that they wanted with the exact skills that they wanted, and as a result they also invest a little bit in some body resculpts to get them looking like they want as well. So this is definitely not something that's highly correlated to Plex at the moment. What could be though are the skill extractors, and we are seeing that movement. So as Plex went down, so did the skill extractors. When Plex has decided that it was time to bottom out and head above the 20-day moving average with the 5-day moving average, so did the skill extractors. But now that Plex are going back down due to the sale, that pressure immediately comes over to the skill extractors as well, which are bought with Aurum, and of course a lot of Aurum can be converted from Plex, and so that's probably what's happening here. So going back down for the skill extractors, currently selling for 206 million ISK, and the buyers are at 191 million ISK. Not that much, honestly. So the pressure is back on, and we can clearly now see the very strong correlation between Plexes and the skill extractors. Then the question is going to be, what will the impact be on the skill injectors? We're starting to see it happen here as well, although the movement was much more pronounced on the chart here. So we went as low as probably close to 575 million ISK for a skill injector. Then we went back up towards 600 million ISK, but now here we're plateauing out, and the projections are actually showing a slight decline in the price. So let's see, that puts us at almost 595 million. Current sellers are at, a little bit of hesitation from the market, 605 million, buyers at 563 million. So it's still a bit of a mixed picture here. Apparently some people are selling straight to buy orders when it comes to skill extractors in order to get an average price that's a little bit below the seller prices, and these are still coming in incredible volumes here. 117 skill injectors being brought to the market here. We got another 39, 25, all of this in the latest 24 hours. So I do think a lot of people have gotten their skill point farms going as well, and they're now able to regularly bring skill injectors to the market for the ISK. It's a business you could look into, but for me, honestly, I'm a little bit too proud for every skill point that my characters have. I feel that it is a bit of a sense of dedication to the game, and so I'm actually proud to have a character of more than 100 million skill points, for instance. And I think that there are useful skill points above just selling them for ISK as well. Let's say PI skills, those become access to a very passive ISK income, and so that's what I'm gonna work on my characters next. But yeah, skill injectors also pretty closely following the Plex prices at the moment, of course, because a part of the price of a skill injector is the extractor, which is very tied to the Plexes themselves. So under pressure once again, but keep in mind there's also a Plex sale going on. Next up, we'll check on the minerals, 830. Let's take a look at those, and we'll start off with titanium here, which is also under pressure now. Clearly, we used to be able to hover around 630 or 620 as an average price for titanium. We tried to get back up there, but now we are under pressure quite heavily, and we're going back down. So the sellers are at 605, around 6 and the buyers are at 550. Let's disregard this one sell order here. Expires in 1 second. There's just something wrong with this one. So normally if I go back, it should be gone. Yeah, so 550 for the buyers, 605 for the sellers for titanium. A little bit under pressure here, going back down, and we're definitely not reaching that average of 620 or anything like that anymore, especially if you look at the selling volumes here. We still have 800 million and 360 million units coming in very recently below 610. So this is obviously going to make it hard for titanium to really come above that. Almost a full front page of new sell orders as well. On the other hand, the buy orders are decently large in volume. So we've got 2 billion units here, 1.3 billion here, and 1 billion units being bought. But at 538, the buyers don't seem to need to move in order to get a lot of their orders filled, and as a result there is a bit of pressure on titanium at the moment. 6 ISK is still an okay price, but once you go below that in the 5 point somethings, then of course titanium does become a lot less effective to mine per hour. So keep it in mind, between 6 and 7 is really a decent price for your titanium and for your feldspar that you're mining. But once we dip below 5 ISK, we're tending to come into the not so effective range, I think. Next up here we've got pyrite, clearly under pressure as well, heading to 980. So of course comparing titanium, that still holds on pretty decently towards 6 ISK. What pyrite is doing now, clearly reaching a 6-month low, heading below 10 ISK. This is not good for the sources of pyrite that are mined in HiSec at the moment. So 970 for the sellers, 933 for the buyers. Obviously we've left 10 ISK behind, and we are going down. Supply here, despite the 6-month low prices and the very low prices, we're still seeing half a front page of new sell orders coming in, including 1 billion units and 200 million units right here. On the buyer side, I'm seeing 365 million units on one buy order, but then we have to scroll down quite a bit lower in order to find anything of volumes that are comparative to this. So pyrite apparently is oversupplied a little bit at the moment, despite the fact that we are already at 6-month low prices and that we've broken the psychological barrier of 10 ISK. This is obviously far less attractive for HiSec miners that used to be able to sell these for like 11.20 or something like that. So I do think at some point this is going to move miners to not mine the sources of pyrite anymore and to move to something that's more lucrative. Even titanium still looks better than pyrite, despite the fact that we're also heading below 6 ISK for that one. Next up here we've got Mexalon. That's of course still the winner, managing to hold on at 72 ISK. Above 70 is actually a really good price historically for Mexalon. The volumes are still doing decently well as well, although they are slowly going down here apparently, so be careful. Some pressure may be mounting in the Mexalon market, but still selling at 73.7 ISK. The buyers are at 69 pretty much, so that's not that big a gap. And supply here is of course very strong. You can clearly see that it is of course at a high point for 6 months. So here we've got 100 million ISK, 100 million units, 65 million units here, 27 million units on the buyers. Here we do have an order of 36 million units, so he's keeping the buyers going up a little bit if they actually want a chance to pick him up from buy orders, but the volumes are not that big, so you can see that there's much more supply than demand volume wise, and that could start to put some pressure on Mexalon, which is of course something we should expect. If people see that pyrite and titanium are dropping, they're gonna start mining for Mexalon specifically, because that's gonna be their best ISK per hour, but that is going to mean more supply coming in there, and thus will probably start to average out with maybe pyrite and titanium bottoming out a little bit and Mexalon having to give way because of the increased supply, and going back to maybe an average of 60 or something like that is actually in line with my expectations. Finally, we've got Isogen, the final HiSec mineral here. We did try to go back above 100 ISK, and 100 ISK is, well, a decent price. It's not even that great, honestly. I would say 120, 115 are prices for Isogen that I've seen that have lasted for a decent amount of time. You can also see where we come from 6 months ago, 115 ISK. So this is an okay price for Isogen, but below 100 ISK is again where you start to be much less effective per hour mining for Isogen. And unfortunately we are dropping back down towards 90 ISK here, so under pressure. Let's see what supply demand is looking like. So despite again closing in on 6-month low prices, we still have a little bit to go, but it's definitely in the cards. And despite that, you can see that they're still bringing 20 and 23 million units here, another 10 million units here, and almost a full front page of new sell orders. On the buyer side, 1.2 million here, here we've got another one of 20 million ISK, which is probably less than a day old, so it's starting to balance out here. I think that, let's see where the buyers are at, 85. So I think we'll settle somewhere between these two, 90 ISK or just below that could be where ICG, or maybe trying to hold on just above that for the sellers. It's a possibility, but it looks like 90 ISK is really gonna be the new normal price for ICG for now. And finally, one where supply demand seems to be decently balancing out between the two forces. So maybe the first indicator of a little bit more stability after, as I've said, the Mexalon pyrite titanium difference needs to phase out a little bit as well. But it's probably going to happen in the next 2 weeks. Then we've got Noxium, the one that I'm calling the in-between mineral, because it's got sources in HiSig but not everywhere, and it has a lot of potential coming from Nelsig as well. So here we are clearly going down again towards 440 ISK. We tried again to reach 470, and on this chart that may look like a high price, but this is historically a very, very low price. So Noxium under pressure due to the mineral change that were introduced like a year ago, I think. Yeah, if you look at it a year ago, we were at 550 ISK. I've seen Noxium at 700, 750, prices like that in the years before all of this happened. So Noxium unfortunately is in a very bad place at the moment, heading once again for a 6-month low at 440 ISK. At this point, honestly, 447 for the sellers, 417 for the buyers. At this point, there are investors that are probably going to swoop in, pick up a little bit of that Noxium, but it's apparently never enough to dissuade people from bringing more Noxium to the market. The supply still seems to be coming in here. We've got 10 million units coming in at 447, which is an extremely low price, but it pretty much covers all the buy orders as well that we're seeing in like the first 2 pages here. So yeah, despite these extremely low prices historically, 6-month low prices at the moment, we're still seeing too much supply coming in for Noxium, so the pressure is still on. At some point this may change, but I think that these are the fundamental situations for Noxium. There's just too much being mined across all spaces, and as a result it would need to be a CCP intervention to save Noxium and bring that one back to a different price, honestly. Next up we've got the Nelsig ones. Here is Zydrine plateauing out at 1250, finally showing a little bit of stability after a pretty wild ride that also started with the mineral changes. So the mineral changes basically tripled, I think, or quadrupled the price of Zydrine. That's what you're seeing here at the very start of the chart. But then a violent pull back towards 1000 ISK happened, a bottoming out at 900, another push back up, another correction, and now finally we're starting to settle down after almost a year between the start of the mineral changes, or probably more than a year between the mineral changes that CCP Fuzzy made to Nelsig and the first signs of stability in these Nelsig minerals. So settling at around 1250 is apparently what Zydrine is doing. I would say that supply is bound to be decently healthy. Well, not that much new supply coming in, a few trying to sell just around 1300 ISK, but 1250 at some point sellers need to drop to that. The buyers are at 1182. So they probably don't need to move. They can probably keep their buy orders below 1200, and it's basically supply demand that's going to have the sellers need to be able to either sell towards 1300 or have to go down towards 1250, but I think some stability is in the cards now. Next up here we've got Megasite, which is settling at 1500, which is also historically a much better picture than seeing Megasite below Zydrine, which never used to be the case. So now Zydrine 1250, Megasite settling at around 1500 ISK, and apparently we are in for some sideways movements here. So 5 million coming in, a million here, 2 million here, but we also have 3.6 million coming in here on the buyer side. They're trying to hold on to 1400 for the buyers, and then the sellers can probably hover between 1500 to 1450 or something like that, depending on how much supply is coming in. But yeah, the first signs that Nulsic Minerals could be stabilizing, and that would be Zydrine at 1250 and Megasite at 1500 or just below that, which is a normal situation because Zydrine tends to be a bit more ample in volumes than Megasite when it comes to mining in Nulsic. And finally, we've got Morphite. This is always the outlier because it is not used in like base ships in Tech 1 stuff. This is actually a Tech 2 mineral that can be mined, and thus I do consider it a little bit differently from the other minerals. But you can see that this was the real winner of the Citadel expansion, going from below 10,000 ISK, topping out above 20,000 ISK, so doubling in the price, and is now apparently settling at 18,000 ISK, still a healthy 80% profit if you missed the sell opportunity. And so now sellers are at 18.2 thousand, something like that, 300,000 units, 374,000 units, not that big in volumes. You can see almost a full front page of new sell orders though. And for the buyers, they are trying but probably not able to dictate the price at the moment of Morphite. So yeah, this one is probably also going to start to hold on at the current price range. It's going to be interesting to see how long some stability can last in the current market. Next up, some Tech 1 chips, 2045. Sounds good. Let's take a look at what these are doing. Here is the Armageddon trying to hold on at 195 million ISK, also showing first signs of stability, really 5-day moving average just hovering around that price range. That is sellers at 203 million, buyers at 183 million. Availability, I can't scroll, but it's still decently okay. One thing that you should notice though is that no new Armageddons are being brought in to the market in the last few days. This really does show that basically it's not the time for battleships in EVE Online at the moment. They're not in the meta. I think a lot of people consider them to be way too vulnerable to bombing runs and to things like that, whereas smaller ships like stealth bombers, interceptors, cruisers, the new tactical destroyers are definitely being flown so much that yeah, basically it's very easy to mix in a small bomber fleet in any of the other very fast mobile fleets, and as a result the battleships just aren't used that often because they are always vulnerable to that small bomber fleet at the moment. Next up here we've got the Caracal holding at 12 million ISK, which is actually a bit of inflation to be seen over these 6 months. I think that's definitely in the cards. It's also again a cruiser, a very easy and effective cruiser, definitely a doctrine that's flown a lot in Nulsic, and as a result we are paying a bit more for the Caracals at the moment. Availability should be pretty damn good. Yeah, we can definitely browse quite a little bit and look at that, 200 units coming in here less than 6 hours ago. This is of course a great opportunity for producers at the moment because of the high demand for Caracals. They can produce big volumes, and I do think that they make a decent margin when they can sell above 12 million ISK, which at the moment they can. So Caracal is actually looking pretty healthy, even for more production at the moment, because up to 11.5 million I think you're still doing okay. Next up here we've got the Dominics, a bit of a spike up to 215 million. The response is a couple of Dominics is coming in, bringing the price down below 210 straight away for the sellers, but you can see that it's extremely low volumes that already push down the price. When it comes to volumes purchased, 50 units a day, something like that, 50-60 units a day. So a slight uptick in volumes apparently caused a big increase in price. That is normal when you see the availability that is just less than a front page, but this is also quickly being snuffed out by just a few extra Dominics is being brought to the market. I think it does show again that battleships are not the stuff that is being used and lost a lot. That's very important. when it comes to demand for these ships. Of course, the Dominix is a really good PvE ship, but it's just not flown in nullsec in any major numbers, I don't think, and as a result we just see these very low volumes, the possibility of quite spiky behavior, because just the purchase of 5-6 Dominixes can cause something like this, or 5-6 more Dominixes can cause something like this, and as a result though, this is a little bit deceptive, right? This is not a Dominix doing great, this is just a temporary little bump due to some a bigger volume spike right here, but it's going to be crushed quite quickly. Next up here we've got the Drake, heading for that 6-month low again at 52 million. So apparently at the moment the movements are between 52 and 58 million in decently violent swings. This is more than 10% as well from the bottom price of 52 million. So this is a little bit surprising to see such volatility in the Drake. The question is, will this start to slow down, and will we start to settle maybe between 52 and 55 million or something like that? That will depend on availability, which to me seems to be pretty good, but only 4 new Drakes coming in the last 24 hours. So I think that people are definitely picking where they are producing, what they're bringing to the market, causing a little bit of volatility in, for instance, the Drake, because being able to sell at 57, 58 million is a great opportunity. So people make and bring Drakes to the market. The result is a bit of oversupply because the volumes are not that great. 100 Drakes is not that much, and thus you get this bumpy road again, just on slightly higher volumes than the battleships. It's also true, I think, that the Drake, while still used sporadically in PvP, is not a major doctrine at the moment either. Maybe some fleets use Drakes, but I don't think that they are overwhelming nullsec like they did a few years ago. Next up here we get the Mauler, again also heading towards 12 million ISK, which is probably a little bit higher than its normal average, which is going to be 11 to 11.5 million probably. So this is a cruiser, availability is a little bit low, so that's probably going to be why this price is slowly edging up towards 12 million on the chart here. The volumes though not that great, but I think Mauler could be something that you can produce in limited amounts and actually make some money on that. If you look at the numbers available here, there's just not that many of them. Next up here we get the Myrmidon, also coming off of a nice spike to 66 million, but that was very short-lived, and we are right back where we started at the average 54 million, something like that. Availability seems to be quite alright, although we're not seeing big volumes in single orders. That is again, I think, because Myrmidons are just not used that often in nullsec either. It's a good PvE ship, just like the Dominix is, so it's got a bit more going for it than, let's say, the Armageddon, or some of those more specialized ships, but you do see that the prices, yeah, they're under pressure despite lower volumes as well. So this is not that great. You had a nice opportunity, but again, people spot that, they bring the Myrmidons to the market, causing the price to crash back down to the averages, and then everything just slows down and needs a bit more time. Next up here we get the Oracle. This is actually okay. I'm surprised that it's the tier 3 battlecruiser that have actually been decently volatile probably 8-9 months ago, that are now decently stable here at around 85 million ISK. This is a nice picture of a Tech 1 ship. I like to see the market like this. Availability seems to be quite alright as well, with fresh supply coming in for almost a full front page here, and so as a result here the Oracle pretty low on volumes again as well, but pretty stable in price. Next up here we get the Raven. That one's actually taking off from 175 million ISK to 200 million ISK, which is still just an average for the battleship, so we're actually recovering from pretty low prices. What is bound to have happened is that we reached almost 200 million ISK here on lack of supply and a big volume spike, but the response was way too big, and as a result we brought the Ravens back down towards 175, and it just took some time for that glut in supply to be absorbed by the market, and now we're finally crawling out of the hole, and as a result, of course, nobody has been probably producing a lot of ravens in the last few weeks. It took us going back to 200 million ISK for fresh supply to come in, and the response is almost immediate. You can see here 47 ravens. That's of course going to stop the increase in price here, and probably going to start to push the pressure, to put the pressure back on the price to go back down. Average to be expected, I would say 185 to 190, something like that, because yeah, battleships, they're just not in the meta at the moment. Next up here we've got the Stabber holding at 11 million, also volumes not that high. What I'm seeing here though is definitely a pattern of decently low volumes, probably lower than before. This could be the tax changes, or it could be summer decreasing activity. So this is definitely something that could be happening as well. But overall here, the Stabber decently stable despite very low availability. So keep this in mind if someone would decide to basically buy 150 Stabbers, basically everything gone, then they could dictate a price, and so a spike is very easy to make. It doesn't take that much ISK to do it, but yeah, also very low volumes in being purchased. So who would risk that? Someone that's probably has a handle on maybe some Stabber fleets being produced by Nosik or something like that. But at the moment still stable, but keep in mind that just buying less than 200 Stabbers can actually completely dry up the market and cause a price spike. Will you be able to make some money off of that? Maybe if you can actually produce them, but at the moment it stays pretty risky. Next up here we've got the Tornado that actually managed to go up to 88 million after a decently stable period here, but you can once again see that such opportunities are spotted right away. So increased volumes up to 88 million ISK, but now we're gonna see the supply here. Look at that full front page of new Tornadoes competing with each other, bringing the price back down to 76 million ISK. And pretty soon, of course, we'll probably be back at 74 million ISK, something like that, for a Tornado as volumes decrease here once again. So this is probably going to be maybe ganking, because Tornadoes are good ganking ships, or a Nosik Tornado fleet is of course a possibility as well. A few of those can cause the increase in volume, the increase in price, but the industry responds right away with increased supply, and thus the price is already back down. Next up here we get the Typhoon, final battleship here that I'm checking, trying to crawl out of a hole as well to 180 million ISK. Supply here, there are a few coming in, but yeah, just 5 new sell orders, 10-12 Typhoons, compared to a daily average of less than 20 of them, probably around 20 of them being sold. That is going to stop the increase in price here as well with just a few orders. So the Typhoon is now basically trying to find some stability, I think at 180 million, but you can see here on the volumes that it's extremely low, and thus yeah, not too good for battleships at the moment. Next up here we get the Vexor, that was also going up to 13.5 million, but the response as well going back down towards 12 million, and just below that should be an average. So currently buyers are already at 11.2 million, sellers are forcing each other down to 12.4. You can see here less than a day old, 52, 51, 22, 48. Just the opportunity to sell a little bit higher tends to attract a lot of attention, and as a result these prices are under pressure right away and will settle to their averages very quickly. What is being flown more, of course, are some Tick 2 ships, some Tick 3 ships, stuff like that. But yeah, one thing to keep in mind, the general trend in Tick 3 has been lower prices as well, on oversupply. So I think that summer could be something that's adding here. Decreased activity in EVE Online could be something that's decreasing the volumes and thus putting a lot of pressure on a lot of these prices. Next up we get the Tick 2 market, 32.30. Okay, let's take a look at these. We'll go over these pretty quickly because I actually think that the volatility in the Tick 2 market is completely dying because of the new taxes. That's my current theory here, and the Basilisk is showing that, currently settling at 200 million, decreasing the volatility as well. Lower bottoms, lower highs, it's just not happening at the moment, and 200 million is like right smack in the middle between the 6-month low and like the 6-month high points that happened. So I'm not seeing any opportunities being produced here at the moment. Next up here we've got the Cerberus, very similar situation, right? We used to have bottoms at 180, we used to have volatility up to 260 million, but now with the taxes taxes. We're basically meandering around 210 million ISK. You need to pay a bit more to produce them due to all of the taxes, of course, and as a result it's going to be a lot harder to take off from this higher price point. Next up here we've got the claw, which is of course an interceptor that's probably being flown quite a bit at the moment, but that one is also definitely stabilizing at 22 million ISK, decreasing all of the volatility as well. Bottom at 18 million 6 months ago. It doesn't look like we'll reach that anytime soon. Next up here we get the Guardian. Guardian is actually taking off. All right, first one showing me wrong. You could have bought Guardians below 130 million ISK here. They are currently selling for 167 million ISK, so that's 35 million, something like that, probably 20%. That is not bad, but keep in mind that it's more than a month between the low and the high. It's not as volatile as before, but that was a slight opportunity to buy below 130 million. So if something like this happens, a clear bottom at a very low prices that are in line with what used to be very low prices, then you probably do have a buy opportunity. But it's good to finally see the first sign of some volatility in the Tech 2 market here. It is in a logistics cruiser, so that could be a nullsec purchase or something like that, because of course in nullsec Guardians, for instance, can be very important in fleet warfare. Next up here we've got the Hound. That unfortunately is not a picture we want to see. Clearly decreasing volatility. You're not seeing the spikes up to 27, 28 million anymore. You're not seeing the bottom of 17 million being in play anywhere here either. So yeah, basically not sure what I would do here, but I would just not be touching the Hound at the moment. Guardian, yeah, if you bought at 130, you can try to sell for a good profit now, but this is definitely the first one in quite a few weeks that shows this Tech 2 volatility that can actually make you some money. So here next up we've got the Ishtar. That one did really well as well, going from 165 up to 215, 200 million, something like that. Is now starting to go back down. The buyers though are still at 195, sellers at 201 million ISK, so it's gonna take some time for this to really recover. If you again see prices close to 165, that's a good bottom to actually purchase at, but you can also see that the increase in price took more than a month just to get there. Now second month for a bit of a double spike, but this is not something you could speculate on, and as a result at the moment, yeah, you can still sell Ishtars probably for a good profit even if you make them, but finding another buy opportunity could actually take a long time. Next up here we get the Manticore, again settling at 20 million ISK right in between the tops and the bottoms, so this is not 26 million ISK, I'm sorry. So this is not something I would personally want to make a move on. Next up here we get the Nemesis heading towards 22 million, but you can see the lack of volatility here, right? And you can also see that it's not heading towards a low price either, so nope, that's not what I would move on. Here is the Oneros. That was interesting a few weeks ago, right? 140 million ISK here. You can also see the volume increase. People definitely did buy at that opportunity. But now it's been more than a month. It's slowly gone up to 150, but it's waiting to see if something like the Guardian chart shows up here on the Oneros as well, which honestly it's just not fast enough, right, to make those Twitch trades, to make that money like every few weeks, find a few good buy opportunities in Tech 2 markets, a few weeks later be able to sell at more than 10% profit. Just doesn't seem to be happening anymore. But yeah, the Oneros, your buy opportunity is over. That was like a month ago. Will you have a sell opportunity? That's obviously something we need to keep an eye on. Next up here we get the Purifier, a bit of volatility, but always taking off at 22 million, going up to 26 million. That's like less than 10%. We need this spike to be like double that in order to actually be worth it. So here you do see the increased volume, increase in the price, but it's still less than 10%, despite like 3-4 times the normal volume. So that's definitely not good news when you're looking for volatility, when you're looking for trade opportunities. Next up here we get the Raptor settling just below 25 million ISK, right? You want to see buyers below 20 million, just not happening at the moment. 22.2 for the buyers, 23.8 for the sellers. That's just going to allow this price to stay stable, I think. Keep one thing in mind though, Raptors, again, an interceptor that's probably flown quite a bit in nullsec, and thus that could be a part of the story, but I think the taxes are playing a major role here. Next up we've got the Scimitar. new bottoms at 140. It's okay, right? 140 million to buy scimitars, I think, but again, you can see that it's a slow increase in price, still 140 to 170. That's not bad, currently selling at 172 million, but having to wait more than a month to finally have this opportunity and having this be so slow is not what we're used to in the Tech 2 market here on Eve Talk. So yeah, you can sell at the moment. I think we're definitely at a 6-month high point here. 170 million for scimitars is not bad. So if you have them, you can probably sell them at a decent profit, but waiting for that next buy opportunity, I think, is going to be something that'll take a very long time. And yeah, so the Tech 2 market in general just doesn't seem to have the volatility it used to, and I think that the guilty party are the new taxes. Next up at 39.10, we've got the Tech 3 market. Let's go over these, but that story has been going on for a few months now. Oversupplied, very extreme pressure on the prices, and now we can see the confessors going down towards 40 million ISK, so 41.4 for the sellers, 38.5 for the buyers, and despite that, again, full front page including 149, 25, 10 and 15 confessors coming in the last 24 hours. This is a clear sign of oversupply, right? I mean, these tactical destroyers are very good ships. They're probably flown quite a little bit, but at the moment they're just produced in such vast numbers that we are at 6-month low prices, and despite that we still see all of that supply coming in. That's just the name of the game at the moment. If you want to do longer term investments, if you're looking for something that could possibly help save your portfolio, then I do think some tactical destroyers could be a good idea, because this will not last eternally. I mean, some volatility in wormhole space could completely change this, but at the moment, it's just the situation, right? You can clearly see that we've been going down for more than 4 months, and despite that, despite a 6-month low price by quite a margin, by 20 million, by 50% compared to the current price, we are still seeing all of that supply coming in. So this could be something that you could invest in longer term, but I would not consider this a short-term investment. Next up here, we get the Hecate, very similar chart here, actually breaking 40 million. And let's see where we're at, 39 million for the sellers. Here finally supply is slowly dropping, but we're still seeing 86 and 10. So this is still almost 100 Hecates coming in here, despite the fact that it's below 40 million. Is the entire supply below 40 million is almost a full front page. So it looks like 40 is still not the bottom for these tactical destroyers. People are still bringing them to the market. Next up here, we get the Jackdaw. Obviously, that's going to be a similar story. Try to hold on or try to get back to 45 million on a big volume spike, but we are again at 6-month low, heading for 40 million, and supply, yeah, almost a full front page here again with 33, 10, 10, 18, 15. All of this is in the last 24 hours. All of this is still in the last 24 hours, including 68, 77. The demand just isn't there, and these guys are going to 6-month lows in quite a sustained way, which is of course not good for Tech 3 producers. And finally, we've got this Vepel for the destroyers, heading towards 45, hesitating a little bit right here. So let's take a quick look at supply. Yeah, half a front page, but 47, 10, 10. Here we got 38, 94, 28, 20. I mean, it's just oversupplied. This Vepel is considered a little bit overpowered, which is probably why it can dictate a premium of a few million ISK. But it's under pressure, it's oversupplied. That's just what's happening in the tactical destroyer market. It's a bit less pronounced in the cruiser market, but these are also at 140 million here for the Legion. It's trying to stabilize here, new supply, nothing is coming in, but despite that, you can see that the price is not spiking up. So it's just that the demand isn't there at the moment. Next up here, we get the Loki chart. Try to go up to 150 million, failed to reach that, and is now under pressure again. Does that mean supply has come in here? Yes, it does. It's not 90, 70, 60 like in the destroyers, but it's still 8, 5, 3, 3, 4. All of this, almost a full front page in the last 24 hours, because you could still sell a Loki at almost 144 million. The Legion, right, 142 is just what's coming in at the moment. So it's lower in volume. It's not that bad in the cruiser market. This could turn around more quickly on some changes in Nulsec, maybe a big war, a few producers being knocked out or something like that. But it is the same story, right? You can see that we're at 6-month lows. Here we get a big volume spike, probably almost 3 times the daily averages, and that is still being stumped quite quickly. So what's availability looking like here? Yeah, this is what happens, right? You can see someone bought big Proteus fleet, probably. We're talking 200 units, something like that. The price goes up to almost 160 million, but what is the response from producers? Yeah, all of this in the last 24 hours, two full front pages of new Protea coming in here, because they could sell at a slightly higher price, just squashing that price right away. And yeah, it's just a trend at the moment. That leaves, of course, people not being able to bring as many legions, which could now spike up a little bit. But in general, I just think there's too much being produced here, and those prices will remain under pressure until maybe something happens. And with summer causing a decrease in activity, honestly, this could be sustained throughout the summer, but I'm actually considering some of these tactical destroyers to go along my plex purchases with the ISK that I make at the moment, because while this is also definitely not bad, something like this is quite incredible to see. And then finally we've got the Tengu here. That one is also under pressure at 145 million. Are we going to actually break that? Yes, the sellers are forced below 145 million on the Tengu, buyers at 136. And here we also have more than a full front page of new Tengus coming in, because it's still slightly higher than something like a Legion that goes for 142 to 144. The Loki settled down quite heavily below 145, and so the Protea, the Proteus and the Tengu tried to hold on a little bit more, but that's now where the pressure is focused on. A lot of Tengus coming in, a lot of Protea coming in, and as a result these will also be put under pressure. Breaking 145, it's definitely in the cards, especially if you think that demand is not going to magically increase over the summer. So yeah, the Tech 3 market, probably a decent investment longer term to protect some of the ISK that you're making at the moment, but definitely also something that's highly oversupplied and could go even lower on lower activity over the summer. And then finally for the extra product at 45.45, so this is going to be a pretty long EVE talk here, but I do want to check the PI, the advanced PI that are used a lot in the citadels. So we've got manufacturing materials, I think planetary materials, advanced planetary materials. Let's quickly run through these, because these could have a big impact on the availability, the price of these citadels, and of course on whether or not I may want to try and go for a large citadel somewhere else or something like that, or just get one ready in case or something like that. So the broadcast nodes that went from 1.5 million to 4 million in a few months here on the citadel expansion are now going back down towards 3 million. 3.2 for the sellers, 3 million for the buyers still. So it's still definitely double the price, but you can see the first signs of this going down in price a little bit. So, okay, that's quite interesting. Integrity response drones coming off of the spike right now, pretty recently. Maybe a 1-year chart could be a better indicator for these actually. So here's the broadcast node starting at 1.5. Now, retracing a little bit, but still not anywhere close. If you would have like 2 to 2.5 million, then that would be like probably a normal price range for increased demand, but this is still a lot in speculative territory, I think. Integrity response drone obviously still being speculated on quite heavily, spiking up to 4 million. That is being close now to 3 million, but starting at 1.4, still 3 million, still definitely at a 6-month or even a 1-year high here. It needs to go back down a little bit more, I think, before affordability will go up for a lot of these citadels. You can still see that we are dealing with very high volumes. So what could be playing a role here are people still preparing for the next set of structures that are going to come out throughout the year. Here are the nano factories, 1-year high starting at around probably 700 thousand ISK, now going for 2.2 million ISK, triple the price here in a year. And of course a lot of the volatility here at the tail end due to the Citadel expansion. So it's not exactly what I expected. I thought we would be starting to pull back a little bit, but the nano factories are clearly not doing so. Organic mortar applicators, that one pulled back just a little bit, but start at 0.70. Currently going for 1.1 million, so that one never really tripled, quadrupled in price. Apparently the availability of these is more than enough for the market compared to the rest, right? It's still definitely you're paying a higher price, but this is decently affordable. Next up, we get the recursive computing model, still working its way up towards a 1-year high, right? Coming off a little bit of a top here, but 2.2 million is still pretty damn high, double the price, almost 1.2 million a year ago. And then we get a self-harmonizing power core, also coming off of a high, but honestly this is still a spike that happened not that long ago, going up to 4 million from 1.5 million, currently selling for 3.2 million, still quite a heavy premium to be paid. Sterile conduits here starting at 0.8 million, settling at 2 million. So again, this was probably a little bit more available already, slightly easier to produce, but you're still paying more than double the price. And we're still at the 1-year high here. And then finally, that's probably not going to be a nice picture because the wetware mainframes have been a bottleneck for me personally. And starting at 1.5 million, we are currently selling for 3.3 million. But 4.5 million as a spike. So I think what we're starting to see, considering here you also see quite a few of them coming off of spikes, is that some of the speculation is starting to be drawn out of the market, right? People are speculating a little bit less on this stuff, but the increased demand is definitely still there, causing a lot of these to be double and triple the price that they were a year ago or even 6 months ago. And this is probably due to all of the other structures that are still going to come out throughout the year. One thing that I'm now thinking when I'm seeing all of this, right, I was expecting a bigger pullback, maybe 30%, something like that, less, causing at least some of them to be in an 80% premium rather than 100% or 200% extra. So what I'm thinking is that this could be a little bit too much, because from what I've heard, the citadels are supposed to be by far the biggest investments, the biggest ISK cost, the biggest material cost. All the other ones, the production sites and the drilling rigs, are supposed to be much smaller. And so what could happen is that a lot of people are overbuying at the moment. And if that is the case, then of course we need to be patient. We need to wait for this price to actually pull back. But it could take as long as the new structures actually coming out, people realizing that they've got way more stocks than they will actually need and actually dumping those to the market. So I would say if you're planning to make citadels, if you're planning to make especially those new structures, I would hold on actually buying a lot of that stuff beforehand at the moment, because we don't know the volumes needed for these goods. And I think, considering how high the prices are still staying, that a lot of people are overbuying by quite a bit at the moment. I think it's a possibility. Keep in mind, this is like my expectation, my thoughts. That's definitely not a crystal ball or anything like that. But I think at some point we will see these PI materials pull back quite a little bit. But it could be after the summer, when the new structures are actually released and people notice or maybe when they're deployed on CC and people notice that they actually cost quite a bit less than a citadel. It's something to keep in mind. It's something to keep an eye out for when it comes to these advanced PI materials, because they're definitely still much more expensive than I thought they would be. I thought by now they had settled down to quite a bit more, but it didn't happen. So anyways, that's going to be it for this EVE Talk then, guys. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you all next time.